Hey everyone, in this video we are going to show you how to use the Surrogate TV dashboard if you're a game creator. If you already made a game and you're trying to understand what is this dashboard, what can I do with it, well, this is the video you want to watch because we'll be showing you all the little tricks and neat features on the dashboard that you can use to make your game experience really cool. You can have private events, you can manage the queue, and so much more. So let's just jump into it. So here on our dashboard, we are going to use actually the Robot Explorer dashboard, one of our events that we run every week, to show you all the things you can do and all the little features there are on the page. So we'll start with the main and most important thing, and that is setting your game online and offline. So as you can see here, we have this little toggle, which allows you to turn the game on and turn it off as well. So when you turn the game on, people are able to actually queue up to the game, and once you turn it off, nobody has access, the watcher view is disabled. The chat of the game will still work, however. Next up, we got another feature, which is called, let's actually maybe zoom in, guys. It's called privacy. So using the privacy setting, you can set your game in different modes. For example, you can have it public, which means that anybody on the Surrogate website will see it. However, to set it public, you need to actually get approval from our team. The other option there is setting the game to unlisted. When you set the game to unlisted, this means that nobody else except for you and people who have the link of your game page are able to actually access it. Technically, anybody can still find the page. So if you want to go more secure, more safe, and if you're still in development phase and you don't want anybody else to access the page, you can set the game to private. When you set the game to private, there will be a private URL created, which is a custom URL that allows you to be sure that nobody else will access the game except for the people you want. So the difference between unlisted and private is that when you set it to unlisted mode, the game page link that you have, the URL that you define when creating a game, like for example here it's /Robot Explorer, it will actually be available for anybody. Even if it's unlisted, people can still find it by using the original link. But when you set it to private, your link changes, meaning people can still go to the Robot Explorer page in this case, but to actually play the game, if you put it online, they'll have to have the private URL that you generate here. So these are the main things on the privacy. Let's actually put the game back to public, and let's see what other things can we do on the Surrogate TV game dashboard. So the next thing we are going to be looking at is the game loop. So the reason the game loop is such a cool feature is because it lets you analyze visually and understand what is happening with your game in real time. You can see the game engine and at what state it is, what is the status of your robots, what is the status of the players, and at what state is your game currently, whether it's about to start or has it ended, etc. You can visually understand what is happening during your event or experience, and you can easily manage that. So let's go back and actually look at the game loop and try to understand what are these things meaning. So the base part of the game loop, the first thing you can actually interact with is pause the loop. So when you pause the game loop, it kind of freezes everything happening on the game page. Freezing the game loop means that people can still queue up, but not a single new game will start. So it will fetch players, but it will not actually let them play. Another thing with the pausing the game loop, it actually stops your game engine. So if you're trying to add a robot, you won't be able to see it in the dashboard unless you unstop the loop. These are some important things to keep in mind when trying to build your own game. Let's go back and see visually how it looks once again. And next up, after pausing the game loop, you'll see controllers. Controllers means how many bots are currently available to be played. These are the enabled bots in your set. We'll go more in depth about that in a little bit. But in short, if you have two robots enabled and both of them are working, it will show here 2 out of 2 controllers right now. If you have one robot enabled and it's working, it will show 1 out of 1 controllers enabled. The reason it's 2 out of 2 here, for example, is we've set the maximum limit of players for this game to 4, but because only 2 robots are currently available, it shows 2 out of 2, meaning that 2 robots are actually working. Next up, we got the amount of players currently available in the game. So depending on the way you set your game, you can have a situation where you made a game for a multiplayer, like it's a 2-player game, but the game is still playable just by 1 person. A good example is you can have a console game that technically is made to be played in multiplayer, but it can still play even if it's a 1-player queuing up to the game. So on the dashboard, you can see how many players are in the game and how many players are needed to play the game. So for example, in our game, right now it is set so in the game engine that you have to have, it's up to 2 players. However, we only need 1 player to actually start a game. There's no game logic that requires minimum amount of players. However, if you set in your game engine settings the minimum requirement that there should be 2 players, the game will not start until 2 players actually queue up to the game. This is very important to keep in mind when you're making a multiplayer game. So this is a good indicator. If, for example, if you've set that minimum players is 4, right? The game will not start unless there are 4 players, and you can actively see it in the dashboard how many people are currently in the game. Another good thing we can see in the dashboard right now is the status of the actual game. So for example, sometimes what will happen, for example, in our pinball machine games, is the pinball itself will not start. Like for example, something happened with the ball sensor, and because the way we made our Python code, the game will just not start unless we know that there's a ball in the ball shoot lane. But if you really want to start a game manually, for example, and you know that there's some issue, you can just press the start button and it will force the game to start, even though something is stopping it from starting in the Python. It's quite convenient when you're debugging stuff, and it's also quite useful in case something goes faulty and you still want the event to continue. And the last and not least is the end. So the end loop, the end of the loop indicates that the finish event, the on-finish event in the Python actually has been executed. So it means that the full game loop has went through. There was a start, there was an end, and the end can have multiple different triggers. Like in some games that we have and other creators have, it's when a person has broken the car, for example, like in the Carlando challenge. In other games, it's the image recognition triggering some certain event that knows that, okay, the game has ended. In our pinball machine games, it's we know that 3 balls have been played, and we know that the game ends because of that. However, you can also have a more simple end game event, like for example, there is only 30 seconds per play, or there's only 10 minutes per play, and when the 10-minute timer runs out in the game engine, the game will just end for that player, or many players if you have a multiple game. And that's it, that is the whole loop. So when I'm going to unpause the game engine, we are going to enter we're going to enter the game loop, so in the active mode. So we can see here, there's the start, that everything was initialized correctly, and the game engine is happy. Then we have the amount of controllers, and now because the game is offline, we don't really have players in queue, so it's just waiting for players to queue up. But since it's offline, nobody actually can. But if we would enable that and people would queue up, we would see it here. And if the game starts, we would see that the green here in the game status, and we would see end when the game ends. It's as simple as that. Another cool feature we have here is kind of more technical, you could say, but it shows also like the log of what is the current status of the game engine. For example, right now it says that it's fetching players. One cool thing, for example, if you see that if you've set the game to 4-player game minimum, but then there's only 1 player in queue and you still want to run it, you can just press the start button and it will disregard that fact. Quite useful in some cases. But yeah, it shows you the console and it shows you what is kind of happening on the technical level. And then the very useful feature we have is this restart game loop button. So the reason this feature is so useful is because if you, for example, have a game that is stuck for some reason, it didn't end as you intended, you can just press the restart game loop and it will restart everything. Keep in mind though that when you press that button, no scores are saved. So if you're having something competitive, don't press it too many times. But if you want to empty the queue, you want to restart the game, if you're testing and you're stuck in like a pre-game phase, etc. Using the restart game loop button is very easy way to reset everything from scratch and start a new game. It's a very convenient button, at least in our experiences and talking with other creators. It's a very convenient feature. Next up, let's see what we have. And we actually have the current player list and the queue. So the convenient part with the current player list is you can straight away see the current players and you can see their username. So for example, 4 players queue up, you'll be able to see them here and you'll be able to see their username and know who is playing exactly. The queue indicator on the right here currently shows you how many players are in queue. So for example, if you have a huge event and the time is ending, the event only runs for 90 minutes and you only have 20 minutes left, you can see, my queue is still 20 people. I know that this is the maximum, so maybe in chat I will write, hey, no more games will be run after the queue ends, for example. This is something good to know, especially if you're running events and not games that run 24/7. Next up, we're going to talk about my favorite feature on the dashboard, and that is sets. So the reason we made it is when we started the company and building the platform, we actually had a couple of our own games like Race for the Cars 143, as well as Sumo Bots. And there we have robots that cannot run for a very long time on their own because they use batteries. They can maybe last a couple of hours, but we wanted to run the game for as long as possible. So this way you can have multiple sets of robots. The robots can be identical or very different, but you are able to kind of have a certain set for the players to queue up with, and then you just change the set from one to another, and now people are queuing up to totally different robots. All you have to do is press one button. You don't have to SSH, you don't have to do any technical stuff. You just press one button on the dashboard and all of a sudden people are controlling totally different robots. So when you're swapping batteries, for example, or putting some bots to charge, this is very convenient because you can continue the event very smoothly and easily. So let's actually go to the dashboard and look at these sets. So this is an example from our Mario Kart, from our Robot Explorer game. And we've got a lot of robots here. So this is set 0. This is from where we started. So we have the rover, the monster truck, another rover, another monster truck, so many different robots, and they all are in this set 0. But at the same time here we have set 1, which we use when we want to let you guys or anybody control the Mario Karts on our Robot Explorer mission. So all I have to do is press use this set, and automatically a totally different set of robots is now used for the queue of the game engine. And additionally, I can of course enable a certain robot, and that will allow, if it actually works, like the controller and streamer are working, it will allow a person to actually queue up to that robot when the game is online. And then looking even further, we have another set of robots here. This is, for example, from the event we had with the M5 bots, where we had the soccer game. And again, it's a totally different game, right? But it's all running under the same game page of Robot Explorer under the same game engine. As long as the game engine template is the same, which is the default one, the arcade template as we call it, you can do all of this. You can add a bunch of different robots in the same game dashboard, or in the same game, so to say. And let's actually show you guys another cool feature, which I think is very convenient. So here we're going to use set free, and here, since the bots are actually working, we can actually preview one of the robots. And this is very convenient for testing, especially either when you're building the game or during the preparations for the game to actually start. So here you can actually, once you press the preview, you can actually control the robot. So if you predefine the controls like WASD, you can press the buttons and you can control the robot without queuing up to the game. You can control it and test it before having the game online or anything, so you can test it in the preview. But now that we went through all of the main features of the Sergey TV game dashboard, let's actually look at some extra fields we have here that you might not have used before, or extra pages, let's say. So first of all, let's actually go to the revenue. So the revenue page is not maybe convenient or used by all of the creators, but it allows you to set the prize of the game. Right now, not everybody of the creators is able to do so, but if you contact us in our Discord and we think your game fits the criteria, you're actually able to go and set the game to a certain price, like for example 20 gems or whatever you come up with. And then every time somebody plays, you'll be able to see in the revenue page of the dashboard, you'll be able to see how much money did you actually make this week, today, the month, and overall. And additionally, there's another cool feature. You can actually put the admin test mode. So even though you have the cost, you don't have to actually take it out. You just put it admin test mode, you use this toggle, and then no gains will actually be charged from the players. You don't have to change any values, but no gains will be actually charged. No money transactions will happen, so to say. And then at the end of the month, if you actually made some income, you can, for example, press the start payment button, and then we'll actually reach out to you and make you your monetary transaction of all the money you made on the platform. Next up, let's actually look at the tournament page. So this is a tricky one. We started using this feature when we had our Batman 66 tournaments for pinball. So it allows you to have a little extra field on the top right of the game page, and I'll show it to you in a bit. And it allows you to kind of set a countdown timer before the championship or a tournament begins, and then show how long is the tournament running. You can write a bunch of different rules there, like for example, what is the tournament all about, what is the prize, what are the rules, and yeah, you can set a deadline, like when is the tournament ending, and also you can set when is the tournament starting, so you can promote the tournament before it's actually live. So let's actually go to the tournament configuration page, and here I will show you how you can do it all. So let's write the tournament headline. We'll say soccer competition, and we'll put a start time. Let's make it, I don't know, 10 p.m. today, right? And then let's put the end date to some day in the future. Let's say ends in a couple of days. And then we can write the title for a rule, like for example, to win, let's say to win, you need to score 10 goals first. And then here we can write more precise actual rules, 1v1 games only. And then, for example, we can write, what do we write? Let's say prize to be decided. And then another cool thing you can do is also hide the tournament info after the tournament is over. So if you use that toggle, when the tournament is actually out, it ended, the notification field on the game page itself will get hidden as well. So I'm going to save the tournament. Now let's actually go to the game page and see how it looks. And here on the top right, you can see it, the soccer competition. You can see the icon of the tournament, which is this cup emoji. And it's actually live right now because that's how we set the settings. And it shows that it ends in how many hours, minutes, and seconds. And now when I press on it, you can see extra information like 1v1 games only and prize to be decided. And the title, as you can see, to win, you need to score 10 goals first. So it's a small, neat little feature, but if you're running tournaments and you want to let your community know every time they visit your game page, this is very convenient. You just enter a couple of text fields and you have a tournament announcement right here on the page. Next up, we are going to be looking at the permissions page on the dashboard. This is a very important page because there you're able to decide what other people except for you can do with the game. For example, you can have additional moderators and administrators to help you with managing the game, the chat, and host extra events. Additionally, you can have certain players, you can set a certain amount of players by writing their usernames to create private events, meaning that only people that you've set to be allowed are able to queue up and play in the game. So let's actually go to the dashboard and I'll show you guys visually how this works. So here's, for example, is that first toggle we were just talking about for the event mode. So you can use the player toggle by turning it on. And that means that only players who you've selected are able to queue up in the game. You can also select Patreons, but that is only for Surrogate TV Patreons. If you want to run special events just for the patrons of our community, feel free to do so. But just so you know, and additionally, if you're running a game where you want to test something with the alpha testers of our community, you're just testing stuff, you don't really want it to go to production, you can enable that only alpha testers get to test your game. However, this is a list only defined by us, the Sergey TV team. So if you have other players you want to mess with, you might just go with the player event mode mainly. So to give access and to give different permissions, all you have to do is search the username of the user on Sergey.tv. Keep in mind though, it's case sensitive, so if you write it wrong, you won't be able to find the person. So here, for example, I'm going to look for Shane, CEO of Sergey TV, and here, now that I found him, I select the user, and here I can give different permissions. For example, if I want Shane to be able to access the dashboard and the game settings, I'm going to make him an admin. If I want Shane to be able to host games instead and not have all the power on the game, I'm going to remove him as the admin and I'll make him a game host, which allows him to turn the game on and off and mess with the sets, but the person still cannot mess with the settings of the game. So it limits them from going to the settings page. And you can also make a person a moderator. And when you make a person a moderator, they can moderate the chat of the game. So for example, they can ban players if they are misbehaving or doing something wrong or trying to break your game, or if they are writing inappropriate things in the chat, you can ban them in chat specifically. All of these additional permissions you can do through this permissions page. And if you decide to run a custom event or a special event where only certain people can queue up, then what you do is you add different usernames as players and you add them to the player list. And when you decide to run a custom event with only certain players, all you have to do is make the event mode for players only, and then only the people marked as players will be able to queue up to the game. And I think that's it. We were able to go through all of the game setting dashboard possibilities. We went for the game loop, we made the game private or public. We learned what's a set and how to preview robots without actually queuing up. We managed to create our own mini tournament. We managed to learn how to put the game pay to play, and we were even able to set custom events where only certain players can queue up, and also make other community members admins and moderators of the game. I think that's it, literally. We hope you like this video. If you do, please like and share it. Also subscribe to our channel if you want to see more of content like this for the creators on Sergey.tv. And if you have any questions or suggestions, hit them in the comments below. We'll have another video coming next week where we'll be talking about the game specific settings like the overlays, how to put different visuals, and so much more. And we'll see you next week.